Okay, so I'm going to be arguing the claim that League of Legends is a sport. So the claims I received were: one, many countries and organizations have already recognized League of Legends as a sport and the players are considered athletes. Two, it has many aspects that a regular sport has. And three, it is a sport according to the dictionary. So for the first claim, that many countries and organizations have already recognized League of Legends as a sport and players are considered athletes. And in the subclaim of the original argument, it was clearly stated that it was not considered an e-sport. However, within the 2 out of the three pieces of evidence that were presented, refer to League of Legends as an e-sport. In the first piece of evidence, League of Legends now official Olympic sport, the article states, "We spoke with Jacques Rogge, current president of the International Olympics Committee, as to why they allowed this e-sport to make it into the Olympics." In the next article, U.S. government confirms League of Legends is a legitimate sport. It states, "Will we live in a gamer-style world where e-sports is as popular as regular sports?" So within these evidence presented, there was contradicting statements. And then in the subpoint A of the original argument, it was stated that the U.S. has recognized League of Legends as an official sport. However, it was failed to mention that the only reason it is considered a legal sport is so that players from different countries can come into the U.S. with a legitimate visa. So it has underlying reasons. And then the second claim, it has many aspects that a regular sport has. The sport defined is as an athletic activity requiring skill or physical prowess and often a competitive nature. A video game is defined as an electronic game in which players control images on a television or screen. So it has no direct link that video games involve physical activity or stamina the way a sport does. And then an e-sport is defined as an activity that involves playing video games competitively. So although it is a competitive game, it doesn't. There's no word in the definition that that permits it to be a physical activity. In subpoint C of the original argument, it was mentioned that these athletes are paid and endorsed just like other competitive athletes by companies such as Logitech, a famous electronic company. However, it was failed to mention that the game League of Legends is endorsed by Logitech. So not the individual players are endorsed by the company, but the game company as a whole. So instead of backing the individual player just as like Nike or whatever would do for a basketball player, they're backing up the entire company. And then for it is a sport according to the dictionary. Subpoints A and B define what qualifies League of Legends as an official sport. However, these qualifications were taken directly from a League of Legends online messaging board, which are opinion-based and are posted to by League of Legends gamers using their gaming names, such as Surrender at 20 Please. So it's all opinion-based, not really backed by evidence or clear credibility. Also in subpoint B of the original argument, a pastime is defined as an activity that someone does regularly for enjoyment rather than work, a hobby. But in subpoint 2C, it is explained that it was claimed that the players are paid to play League of Legends. So these 2 points are contradicting. One saying that they do it for fun, do it for a hobby, and the other saying they do it for to bring in an income. With all these claims, I believe that League of Legends is not a legitimate sport in the United States or any other country.
Thank you. All right, it starts off pretty clearly with the structural material being laid out. The signpost on one is fine. I think that you do an interesting job trying to interpret the argument that about it being an e-sport and that it is, not really ghettoized. I guess that's kind of the way that they would think of it. It's being ghettoized as an e-sport. And then you say, but the advocate's own evidence refers to as an e-sport in two particular categories. And I thought that that was pretty effective. The notion of the Olympics Committee approving it, I do think that you need to give us a little bit more context on that. The visa issue is an interesting point because I wasn't sure if that's what the advocate had talked about, what proof they had presented on this particular claim. The notion that something gets recognized as a sport because somebody comes in on a visa to play League of Legends and they have to indicate that they're here for a sporting event or something like that. That needed to be clarified also. It sounds like they might have an interesting point on this issue. On the other hand, it sounds like it might also just be a technical procedural thing that allows people in for the competition because they don't have another category. They don't have like an e-sport category. So I think that that would be something that you could investigate a little bit more depth. But like I said, I'm not sure that the advocate presented that explanation. On the issue about it having shared aspects with other sports, the idea that it's not necessarily a physical or athletic contest, I thought you explained that pretty effectively. That competition does not automatically equate to a physical activity, that was also fine. The argument about people being paid for it is okay. I'm not exactly sure why being endorsed by something makes something a sport, or I shouldn't say sport. Well, I guess a sport. That's what the argument's about. Your argument comes down to, well, they're not really giving it to individuals; they're giving it to the game company. I'm not sure that that would make a difference in the decision here. I think there's a better challenge to the comparison to be made. That sounds to me like it's trying to split a hair, and you're not really going to accomplish much by doing that. On the dictionary argument, I did think that you did a pretty good job kind of diminishing the evidence that the advocate used on this point, suggesting that it comes from people who are online gamers who believe this game is a sport. They're basically defining it for themselves and, surrender at 21 or 23. Yeah, that sounds like a credible source. I thought that was, a little mocking, and I think a little bit of mocking in that situation might be appropriate for the topic. I did think that you did a good job talking about the notion that it's a pastime that you do for enjoyment, and there is an inconsistency with the position that they presented up above. I can see that inconsistency, although there are plenty of sports that people do for pastime that they don't get paid for, that other people do get paid for, and I don't think that that would necessarily exclude it from being a sport. There are plenty of people who play basketball for fun, and then there are people who get paid for playing basketball. I think both sides would say that it's a sport, so I'm not exactly sure that that automatically excludes it from that category, but I can see the inconsistency that the advocate used because they said because you do get paid for it, then it is really sports-like. All right, thank you.